brotherhood of man. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will live as one.
Good morning, and welcome. My name is Fred Cole, and I'll be your worship leader this morning. One of the things I get to do around here is pinch hit for the worship leader that was supposed to be here this morning. Unfortunately, Amy came down with a fever on Friday night, so. I want to extend a very warm welcome to everyone who's visiting us for the first time. If you're here in person, I hope you'll stay for coffee, and as Barbara says, coffee and crumpets, after the service. And just tell us a little bit about yourself. Rather than gathering because we all have the same belief, we are an intentional community gathered around our shared promise to support each other's individual spiritual journey. If you're newly joining us online, would you please fill out the visitors form? It's found as a link in the description block, because we would love to connect with you also. A couple of program notes. Today, after this service at 12:30, Reverend David and Rachel Alba will lead a class for anyone interested in exploring the potential for membership or becoming more involved here at UUCB. We call it Finding Yourself at UUCB. A light lunch will be provided, and even if you haven't RSVP'd, you're welcome to attend. And 2 Sundays from now, that's Christmas Eve, there will be no 9 o'clock service. Don't remember that. But instead of a 9 o'clock service at 9:30, we'll have breakfast with Santa. We were able to call in a couple of IOUs. And then that'll be followed by our regular intergenerational service at 11. So, and later, Christmas Eve in the evening, 7 o'clock, we'll have our traditional candlelight service here at in the community hall. And that's all of the announcements.
I have 10 or 11 more announcements. Actually, what I do want to say is thank you, Fred. And thank you also, it's a funny thing maybe to say, but I really, really am glad when y'all stay home when you're sick. We do this as a staff team. We have the same conversations too. Well, I have a tickle in my throat. I haven't tested positive yet. No, good, stay home. We'll be fine. And I'm really grateful on that same note to our AV team. You may not know this if you don't go there much, but every Sunday morning at this service, we're joined by 2 or 3 dozen people online who are watching the live stream at the same time. Some of those are newcomers. About once a month, someone will say hi to me at the front doors and say, You don't know this, but I've actually been coming for several months online, and it's a great way to, if you're sick at home. So welcome. Our opening words are adapted from Kathleen McTeague, who offers this invitation. You who are brokenhearted, who woke today with the winds of despair whistling through your soul, come in. You who are brave but wounded, limping through life, hurting with every step, come in. You who are fearful, who live in with shadows hovering over your shoulders, come in. This place is a sanctuary. This is for you. And you who are filled with happiness, whose abundance overflows, come in. You who walk through the world with lightness and grace, who awoke this morning with strength and hope, you who have everything to give, come in. This place is your calling to a riverbank, to channel the sweet waters of your life, the place where you are called by the world's need. And here we offer in love, here we receive in gratitude, here we make a circle from the great gifts of breath and attention and purpose. Come in, come in, come in. Part of what we do in this space is rehearse for the world that we want to see. Part of what we do in this space is pay attention. Take off the masks that we wear to get through the world, to survive. We come into this house, we come into this room, and we cry when we need to cry, and laugh when we need to laugh. We see each other and are seen. We know each other and are known. And it's not that every one of those things is going to happen perfectly and completely in the next 51 minutes. And that's okay too. It's a practice, a way of living, a way of creating. Will you rise in body or in spirit? Let's open in enthusiastic song, building that land we dream of.
That's one of the best things about it is being up here and listening to you. It's wonderful. So if you join the worship team, you get to do it yourself. This chalice is a symbol of our liberal faith. It's the warmth of compassion, the fire of justice, and the lamp for our spiritual path. If you're out there with us online and have a chalice nearby, get ready to light it. Rachel Peterson will light this morning's chalice. Rachel?
Hi, good morning, everyone. I've never had microphone privileges before, so this should be fun. Like Fred said, my name's Rachel Peterson, and today I just want to take a few moments to share my gratitude for this community. And I'll show my age and talk about some YouTube videos for a second, so bear with. About a year ago, I came across some videos on YouTube by John and Hank Green that perfectly described a problem that I was having at the time. These videos explained something that they termed the sad gap. The idea is that the sad gap is a place of fear and inaction, where you've learned about a complex issue of some sort, say climate change, for example, and as a result, you become so overwhelmed by how big the issue is that you feel totally unable to make a real positive difference. So you become frozen in inaction. It exists on a timeline of learning about an issue that has a lack of knowledge about the issue on one end, and a deep knowledge and a sense of agency to affect change on the other. Right there in the middle, where you know about a problem, but you don't feel that you're able to help solve it, is the sad gap. The solution that they proposed to bridging the sad gap and moving from inaction to action lies in recognizing that our shared problems are tremendous, but so is our shared capacity for addressing them. They say to be grateful for the work of others. On the problems that you don't have time to interface with deeply, do not think this problem will solve itself. Think there are wonderful people who I trust to work on this. This is easily said in theory, but much more difficult to remember in practice. And so I'm incredibly grateful for this community, because all of you remind me that I'm just a small part of something much bigger than me, and something that is good. I'm reminded of this when I work with the Climate Action Ministry and see all of the incredible knowledge and dedication to climate work in that group. I was reminded of this in the fall when I attended a leadership workshop and saw all of the various ministries that so many people here are working on, and all of the ways they're using their talents to make our community what it is. Even just being here on Sundays, aligned in our values and reaffirming those values with one another, all of these moments remind me that in being part of something bigger than me, I do have the potential to affect positive change, but I don't have to do it all. And I don't have to do it alone. Knowing that lifts me up, and it calls me into the work that's needed. So this morning, I light this chalice in gratitude for this community and all of the wonderful people who I trust to work on all of this.
To covenant is to commit that even if we fall short of our aspirations, we will never let go of them. We will never cease from trying again, and we will live up to them in the end. In that spirit, gathered in person and online, may we all together speak our covenant aloud. We gather in fellowship to speak truth to each other, to reach out and touch one another, to care with each other, and to speak the truth divine. So be it. May it be so.
Join me in a spirit of prayer and meditation. Let's start with a breath all together. Now, I say words like that, join in a spirit of prayer and meditation, and on the one hand, it's such an abstract thing. I don't know that this is going to make it too concrete, but sometimes the way that I think of that or the way that I feel that is like somewhere inside of myself, in heart or spirit or soul, whatever that piece of you is, there's a door that's opening. And for me, often what that feels like is this door, the sense of compassion or connection. The way that sometimes you move through the world with your heart sort of walled off from everything else. And part of what the practice is on Sunday morning, part of what the invitation is in prayer or meditation, is to open that part of you that feels hurting, which is the same part of you that connects to everyone else too. We're people held in a love larger than the boundaries of our own lives. And we call it God and mystery and humanity and life itself. By whatever name, to that larger love we direct this morning our hope, our prayer, and our pain. We acknowledge that each of us has fallen short of the person we hope to be. Each of us has stopped and started, has made wrong turns. Each one of us has spoken an unkind word, closed a door, burned a bridge. That's what it is to be human. And our hope, our prayer this morning is not for perfection. It is instead the steady hope to be called home to ourselves again and again. To open that door in our heart or our spirit so that we reconnect, so that we find ourselves over and over. Our words of prayer are from the Reverend Elizabeth Wynne. God of mercy, Spirit who makes peace out of war, who wanders with refugees and keeps vigil with children at our border and all borders. Holy healer in hospitals and shelters, at schools, in homes, at weddings, and in planes. May your love be a balm for all the hurt. May your truth be present in offices of power and in the hearts of soldiers and civilians alike. Many times, we've thought the arc was bending toward justice. Many times we saw it happen in courtrooms and in streets, in the hearts of people creating their own liberation. Many times we've also doubted. And for those of us this morning who doubt, who despair that brokenness and suffering and war may win, remind us of the small mercies and the tiny triumphs. Remind us that hope, too, dwells in this world. We'll be together in silence for a moment. Amen. Ritual is an outward expression of an inward movement. And in moving our bodies, in placing stones into the earth here to symbolize our joys and sorrows taking their place in community, we're training and teaching ourselves. We're practicing being a people who recognize the beauty and the tragedy which fill this world, both of them. For you gathered in person, I invite you to come forward as you feel moved. Take a stone and feel its weight. Let your body warm it slowly. And let that stone be a token of your thankfulness or your worry or both. And then place it into the sacred earth in the company of all the joys and the sorrows of this community. A place of first stone, sending love and light to Mary and Sue, to their dear friend Jill, who was diagnosed with terminal cancer this week. They say that they, along with her wife Anne, are devastated. And we see you and we love you. For all our hopes and our griefs, we hold this space with love. And please come forward as you feel moved. 3 days ago, Hannukah began. More or less pretty minor Jewish holiday, celebrating a military victory. The synopsis goes, like so many Jewish holidays, they tried to kill us, they didn't, let's eat. I imagine, I think a bunch of you, like me, grew up celebrating Hanukkah, lighting the menorah, maybe exchanging gifts. It's a holiday that is also a history lesson. Here's the history lesson portion of it. Alexander the Great conquers Jerusalem in the 3rd century BCE. And for 7 generations, the kings who rule over Judea, more or less modern-day Israel, there are no major problems. Israel had already been occupied territory for centuries by the time the Syrian kings came along. So everything goes fine enough until 167 BCE, when a new king comes along who tries to force the Jews to give up their traditional laws and practices. And to do that, one of the ways that he does that is to go to the temple in Jerusalem. Now, you gotta back up 2,200 years from the present day. There are no synagogues in Judaism at the time. There is no diaspora of Jews spread out over Europe and the Mediterranean. Back then, the temple in Jerusalem is the axis of the entire spiritual world of Judaism. All the sacrifices, the holidays, the festivals, they happen in that place, not spread out, not at home, in that place. And what this king does is defile the temple, goes in and destroys it, and goes into places that no one is supposed to go into, and puts statues and idols up of whatever gods he was a fan of. Well, outraged by this, Judah Maccabee and his brothers, sons of a priest in the temple, lead a revolt. And after 2 bitter and bloody years, they win. They free Jerusalem. The temple is rededicated. And as one version of the story goes, they light the holy lamps in the temple, and though these lamps have only 1 day of oil in them, they burn for 8 days, giving enough time to consecrate and prepare more oil. That's the Hanukkah miracle. That's the end of the story. The wait was over, the war was over, the temple was holy again, and the center of all things, the axis of the world, had been restored. Now, maybe the meaning of this story, and one of the things that I think is true is you say, what is the meaning of this story? And for almost any question in Judaism, the answer is, well, our rabbis have multiple opinions. So maybe the significance of this story and the point of celebrating it is to celebrate self-determination, right? This occupying empire is thrown off. People once again have freedom to practice their religion. Perhaps the story is emblematic of this universal hope for liberation. The song Rock of Ages, you probably sang this if you grew up lighting Hanukkah candles. It ends with the encouragement that the time is nearing which will see all people free, tyrants disappearing. That interpretation is not what the point of Hanukkah was for a good long stretch. For most of the history of Hanukkah, most of those 2,000 years, the major point of the story was not to celebrate an improbable military victory. It was not to rejoice at the existence of a Jewish state and the necessity for it. It was not about religious freedom at all. Instead, the victory of Hanukkah, embedded in that story, was of a people who kept their identity and practice in the face of a world which either wanted them assimilated and disappeared or dead and disappeared. That is to say, the victory of Hanukkah was not the political and military victory, but holding fast to an identity in a world that didn't want you. A friend of mine told me that as a Jewish child, as a more or less secular Jewish child growing up in this country in the 1960s, she said Hannukah took on this much greater significance than it ever deserved because we were growing up in a predominantly Christian community. Living in the Midwest, she said, I encountered children who had never known a Jew before me. And I learned the meaning of anti-Semitism firsthand. At Christmas time, she writes, we were overwhelmed because Christianity was all around us on the television, in stores, in our neighbors' homes. And we were outsiders looking in on this world we did not understand. Hannukah became a way for us to reassert who we are in a world where we didn't quite fit in. And lighting the menorah each night was not a matter of recognizing God's miracle. It was a matter of reconnecting to our past. Reconnecting to the past and holding on to your identity in a world that wants you to disappear. For most of the last 2,000 years, Judaism has been a diaspora religion, communities spread across Europe and the Middle East and Africa. And those communities looked to the Hannukah story as a story of the profound commitment to being Jewish, to practicing. It was a connection to history and to hope. But then again, maybe the meaning of the Hannukah story is neither of those things. Maybe its significance is that it was not the end of history. You tell the story, and it ends in this lovely independent state with self-determination and the ability to practice their own religion. That lasts barely 100 years before the Romans roll over that part of the world and it becomes occupied territory again, as it was during the life of Jesus. But that occupation wasn't the end of history either. The temple is demolished entirely for a second and final time in the 1st century. The heart and center of the people and nation is broken, and Judaism becomes something other than what it was. It becomes instead centered around houses of prayer and study, synagogues led by teachers, rabbis. And Jews are set adrift into diaspora, persecution. Nor is that the end of history either, because there is a Jewish state once again in Palestine, and that's not the end of history, because it's an occupied territory, contested, still, bloody, uncertain. We expect, or maybe at least want, stories to have a beginning and a middle and an end that ties things up. Either the good guys win or the good guys lose. Not, there aren't exactly good guys and bad guys and they live in a state of permanent ambiguity. It's less satisfying. Rebecca Solnit, in her book Hope in the Dark, talks about this, wrestles with what does it mean to live in a world where there are no happy endings or sad endings because the world never finished being made. She puts it this way. She says, 1,000,000 years ago, I wrote a few features for the punk magazine Maximum Rock and Roll, and one of them was about women's rights. And a cranky guy wrote in that women used to make 67 cents to the male dollar, and now we make 77 cents. So what are we complaining about? And she says it should not be so complicated to acknowledge that 77 cents is better than 66 cents. And it's not good enough. But she writes, the politics we have is so pathetically skewed. There's only two ways to tell the story. Either 77 cents is a victory, and victories are the point where you shut up and stop fighting, or 70 cents is ugly. So activism accomplishes nothing, and what's the point of fighting? But both of these versions are defeatist because they're static. What's missing from both of those ways to tell the story is the ability to recognize a situation in which you are both traveling and have not yet arrived, in which you have caused both to celebrate and to fight, in which the world is always being made and never finished. When I go looking for some scrap of hope for what's happening in Israel right now, it can only be that the world is not yet finished and still being made. The hope that I find in that is not that the Hamas murder of 1,200 people will somehow mysteriously, automatically result in autonomy for an occupied people. My hope in that is not that the destruction and killing have a point or purpose or end which justifies or makes right the incidental killing of thousands of civilians by Israel. The hope that I find in that is not that atrocity is what's needed for peace to someday emerge. None of that. Instead, the hope in the midst of this is that atrocity is not the whole story. The hope is that the world is not finished being made, that this chapter is not the end of the book, that peace is plausible, is possible, alongside the parade of horrors. And that's what history teaches us. History teaches hope. I learned that phrase from Dr. Timuel Black. History teaches hope. I think he said it in just about every conversation I ever had with him. Let me tell you about the man who taught me that. Dr. Timuel Black was the child of sharecroppers and the grandchild of slaves. And he lived all 102 years of his life on the south side of Chicago. A historian, an educator, an author, an activist. History teaches hope, he said. Serving in World War II with the Army, he was among the first soldiers who saw the atrocities of the Buchenwald concentration camp. And leaving as a liberator, he returned home to a city, a state, a country deeply divided by state-sponsored and enforced segregation. But he returned with this commitment that would come to define his life, a call to build a land where justice rolls down like waters and peace like an ever-flowing stream. History teaches hope, he said. In 1956, he invited Dr. King to speak in Chicago for the first time. And a few years later, he was the organizer, bringing thousands of Chicagoans to the 1963 March on Washington. He was a teacher and a political organizer behind the campaign of the city's first black mayor. He was a trusted advisor to a young law school professor in the neighborhood, a skinny kid with a funny name, who thought he might go into politics and ended up doing pretty well for himself. History teaches hope. Here's the thing. Dr. Black was an African-American man who spent every one of his 102 years on the south side of Chicago. He was not naive for one moment about the world around him or his place in it as a black man. That's not what he meant when he says history teaches hope. It's not naivete. It's not the inevitable upward trajectory of life. It is the possibility of transformation. Hope means that waiting for us inside of this world as it is right now, inside of this status quo, there is something else. There is another world, another way of being, like a nesting doll inside of this one. And it's not guaranteed or easy or inevitable, but it is possible. And terrible things happen over again, and we make the same mistakes over again. History teaches hope, not naively, not cynically. Rebecca Solnit says amnesia, forgetting the past, forgetting the history, leads to despair in many ways because the status quo would like you to believe it is immutable, inevitable, invulnerable. And lack of memory of a dynamically changing world reinforces this view. In other words, when you don't know how much things have changed, you don't see that they are changing or that they can change. I hear this sometimes when I hear people saying, well, Israelis and Palestinians have been fighting this fight for 2,000 years. No, that is not, in fact, the history of that part of the world. It's complicated. It's not over. It's not done. But that's not what the history is either. Amnesia leads to despair. And history teaches hope. Solon's not saying that anything is guaranteed. She's not saying things are going to get better. She's not saying bad things aren't bad. It is a much more modest and revolutionary suggestion that hope lives right exactly inside of difficulty, of the worst moments. Nothing is inevitable and nothing is impossible. You can hold grief in one hand and possibility in the other, not because our work is to weigh them against each other, never because loss justifies hope, but because both of these things are true at once. I heard another interpretation of the meaning of the story of Hannukah. Someone told me once that the most interesting part of this whole story, the most important part, the most relevant part for us, was not the stuff about revolution or political autonomy, and it certainly wasn't the stuff about oil burning for 8 days instead of 1 and miracles. They told me, no. The most important part of this story is that the people who lit the lamp knew they only had enough oil for 1 day. They were not expecting it to burn for 8. They were not naive about what they had in their hand. They didn't expect it to burn forever. They knew what was possible was only enough for a little light to shine. And not naively, not cynically, but resolute, grounded and steady, they lit a light in darkness, a hope for the future. Amen.
Why be afraid if I'm not alone? The life is never easy, the rest is unknown. And up to now for me it's been hands against stone. Spent each and every moment searching for what to believe. Coming out of the dark, I finally see the light now, and it's shining on me. Coming out of the dark, know the love that saved me, and you shared it with me. Starting again is part of the plan, and I'll be so much stronger holding your hand. Step by step, I'll make it through. I know
Thank you. Whoa. This month, our entire offering goes to support the missions and the ministries of this church. As a community, we are self-sustaining through our donations. We don't get money from the denomination, and the income from our rentals, while important, are but a small sliver of our budget. Instead, we embrace the notion of self-governance and self-sustainability. We talk about money directly without guilt or shame or anxiety, but the fact remains, it takes money to make this place possible. So the invitation always is for equal generosity, not for equal gifts. So in that spirit, I invite you to give as generously as you are able. For those online, you can use the QR code or find a link in the video description. And for those gathered here in person, you can also scan the code or make a donation as Bob and Janet pass the baskets. May these gifts be used to enact justice, bringing peace and love to the Boulder community. Thank you.
Each winter as the year grows older, we each grow older too. The chill sets in a little colder. The verities we knew seem shaken and untrue. When race and class cry out for treason, when sirens call for war, they overshout the voice of reason and scream till we ignore all we held dear before. Yet I believe beyond believing that life can spring from death, that growth can come from all our grieving, that we can catch our breath and turn transfixed by faith. So even as the sun is turning to the north, a living flame in secret burning can kindle on the earth and bring our love to faith.
And close with these words from Lynn Unger, words for Hannukah, for hope, for building a future. Come down from the hills, declare the fighting done. Be bold, declare victory even when the temple is wrecked and the tyrants have not retreated, only coiled back like a snake prepared to strike again. Come down. Try to remember a life gentled by daily acts of domestic faith, the pot set up to boil, the bed made up, the table set in calm expectation that when the sun sets, we will still be here. Come down and settle. Unlearn the years of hiding. Light fires that can be seen for miles, that dance and spark and warm the frozen marrow. Set lamps in the window. Declare your presence, your loyalties, the truths for which you do not expect to have to die. It would take a miracle, you say, to carve such a solid life out of the shell of fear. I say you are the stuff from which such miracles are made. When you rise in body or in spirit, we'll close in song.
It's there in the eyes of the